Good morning, everyone. Szczepan Urbanowicz here. Welcome to Go With The Flow, a global watercolour conversation. We're here this morning with Group 1. We've got Jacky, Pearson, Svetlana, Orinko and Michael Barker, together with Rob Candy, our host. In this group, Rob, over to you.
Thank you very much, Szczepan. How exciting for watercolour, and we're away. And how appropriate, watercolour's about light. And how appropriate that we begin in New Zealand, where the first light of the new day strikes first. How appropriate is this? So welcome New Zealand, welcome the world to this conversation in watercolour. Let's go with the flow and let's really understand. I really want to get today out of New Zealand is we want to go into your studios. We want to see what you're doing behind those closed doors. We want to have a look. So today, these fine artists, fine watercolourists are going to open their doors and let us in to have a look at what they're doing, how they go about it, what their future is. And we've got to remember that this has been a global pandemic and we've had to lock down. And I think for many of us, it's changed a little bit our way we see our practice. So this is a great initiative just for those who are still locked down around the world to go into these watercolour studios and have a look. And today in New Zealand, we're fortunate we're going from the North Island right the way down through the South Island investigating these studios. So I'm not going to linger here, I'll be here, but I really want you to investigate these and explore the world of watercolour through these wonderful New Zealand artists. And Michael Barker down there at the south of the North Island, a great conservationist, Michael, I see, and I'm sure you're going to bring that through your watercolour and mention that. So Michael, welcome, and if you want to let us open the door to your studio, it's all yours.
Good morning, Rob, and good morning, Szczepan, and everyone, and to the world, our brothers and sisters. In our native tongue, we say tēnā koutou katoa, which means greetings to you all. And really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us. It's a great privilege. Thank you. I live at the bottom of the Coromandel, which is in the North Island. We live in a rainforest. Our home is called Tamara, which means in the Maori tongue, the garden. And so we'd just like to share some of the work we've done with you. I think it's a fair comment, and the others may agree with me, the other New Zealanders, that we see the world from the outside in. So we look at it from the outside. We're very much physically isolated, and so we see things from a different perspective. For example, the Americans, I think, and the Chinese and the Europeans would say they're the middle of the world. In fact, the Chinese have an expression, the Middle Kingdom. We see ourselves very much as being on the outside. And so from that perspective, COVID-19 has been something akin to being in lockdown and being adrift. So we are now adrift, like an ark almost. It's interesting, John Constable, during the French Revolution, was prohibited from travelling to Europe, and so he spent a lot of his time in England painting landscapes. And so you get all the beautiful landscapes that you have now of England, where he might have travelled to the continent. So it's a bit like that. We've turned introspectively, and a lot of our work, my work especially, reflects that now. Yes, and we'd love to share some of that.
Please,
great. We'd love to see it, Michael.
And my co-host is Judy, and she'll be sharing the journey with us this morning.
Great.
So we'll make a start. I think every artist would agree that beginning of painting is drawing, and to paint you need to draw. So we'll begin with some drawings, and I'd like to share those with you. We live in an open home, very much open plan home, so we'll be travelling around the big gallery where we live. Here we go. Okay, starting with drawings. I love drawings, and I've got two drawings here I'd like to share with you. One is called The Pale Horse, and is very much a reflection on the world at the moment, and Pale Horse is the direct reference to the apocalypse, and very much the idea of the world in danger. Have a horse. I remember the memorable image was a horse travelling through the Californian fires, and it really struck me as an image, and so I've used that as well. And the second picture here is the angel, and it's called Mercy. And a lot of our heroes or comic heroes today are so vengeful, and we don't get a lot of images that reflect mercy. And so this is a reflection on the Kurtana legend, which was the legend of the sword that was held by Charlemagne, and he broke it, or an angel forced him to break his sword and show mercy. And so this is a reflection on that as a drawing, and with the eclipse in the background for effect. Okay, I also paint oils, and looking at New Zealand landscapes, this is a study of our mountains, and will be part of an exhibition later in the year with my good friend Dan Reeves from Wellington. And this is an image called The Misty Mountains, which is also a Tolkien theme, J.R.R. Tolkien. The mountains figure much in the New Zealand psyche, particularly the central North Island and the Southern Alps. Can you see these images okay?
Fine, thanks, Michael. They're wonderful. Very, very clear. Lovely images. Thank you so much. We're really enjoying the exhibition. Great.
We'll go to the watercolours now, which is one of my real loves. And here's Meg, our dog, by the way. Hi, Meg. Is he our dog? Right. Local scenes. I love open painting, the open air. And this is a painting which was done of a local scene, using local architecture and beautiful light, which we get in the late summer, in the early period of the COVID lockdown. And it's a place called Matamata, and it's you'll notice here a concrete tower, and which was known as Firth Tower, and the building is a period piece of architecture, and it's very much based on the pre-villa idea of architecture, and it's a beautiful place to visit, and so I spent the time taking photos and using that as references for this painting. Okay, moving on, and one of the things I really love are maps, and perhaps this reflects more than anything the idea of our isolation. And this map is the map of Zealandia continent, which is the continent which surrounds New Zealand, and 2/3 the size of Australia, I believe. It has a Maori name called Te Rio a Maui, which means the hills, valleys, and landscape of Maui, who was a Polynesian figure in our mythology. So drawing on our ideas, our designs, I've incorporated these. For example, Kowhaiwhai, what we call Kowhaiwhai, which is a beautiful design based around the hammerhead shark, and also the Polynesian idea of Te Ra, which is the sun, and also using ideas like shark teeth. In Africa, you have the wonderful big game animals, or big animals, lions and lions, leopards, and so on. And here we have sea creatures such as the whales and sharks. So I've used a lot of those designs. Also more kuru, what we call kuru. And around New Zealand, the geologists tell us that we have this wonderful landscape of valleys and hills and mountains, the Kermadec Trench, and up to Fiji, Tonga, Niue, Samoa, and it connects us the Polynesian idea of New Zealand is not isolated. It's shared by all these other cultures throughout the Pacific. And ideas such as the sea voyaging waka, which connects us all, and also the flora. And so this is an idea about us as an identity, as a Pacific people, with our own identities and our own culture, and I think it's something that's been reinforced by our isolation at the moment through COVID-19, and that's really significant. I know we're short on time. I'll just show you one last image, and that is my interest in ecology and the environment. This is an image, and it's really inspired by that fantastic watercolorist I really admire, and it's Alan Lee in England. If you're there, Alan, I really take my hat off to you, and I'm really impressed by the way you inspire people. And I'm using.
Could you just hand down on that, mate? Could you just hand down?
Down there.
Thank you.
Bit better?
Wow.
So it's the idea, the Polynesian Māori idea of kaitiaki, which is guardianship. And I've used images almost as guardians for our nature, and I think that's significant today. And that you see a lot of there's been a lot of debate about COVID-19 and the abusive nature, particularly in the wet markets of Asia, and that's a reality. And I think that Jane Goodall, I think you might agree, Jacky, she would comment and say we show a great lack of respect for nature, and this is a reflection on that. The kaitiaki. Yeah, and just to show you a little bit of our rainforest where we live, we'll take you to the window, and there,
beautiful.
little greens, and you'll notice the big tree ferns, which are a real feature of New Zealand rainforests, and so this is a protected area, and we protect it as under covenant, and
I might have lost Michael there for a moment.
we really appreciate, and we want to share that with people as well. So anyway,
Are you back now?
thank you, Rob.
That's
Thanks, Michael. How wonderful. You know, and that's the thing about, I think, many of us watercolourists, that we are a lover of landscape, a lover of the environment. And I think that's really what the watercolour medium allows us to do, to explore this, the passion, the love of this, the natural surroundings, and it's our expressive nature which watercolourists allows us to explore. And Michael, that came through your work beautifully. Can I just ask, just for clarification, your exhibition is coming up when and where?
It's in October at Paraka Gallery and Museum in Porirua, Wellington, with my good friend Dan Reeves, who is the supreme cartographer and artist. And if you're there, Dan, greetings.
Yeah.
And we're sharing an exhibition time for on myths and legends, and that'll be from the 30th of October to the middle of December. Yeah,
I'm
so
sure that
really looking forward to that.
I'm sure that'll be very popular. I'd love to get there. So, and all the best from this, the global world. We wish you the best with that exhibition. So, thank you, Michael, for letting us into that studio. You're very generous today.
Thank you so much.
Let's head down towards south of the North Island. Jacky Pearson, you're a famous girl, and we just want to hear about what you're up to at the moment. Jacky is just one of the most well-known New Zealand watercolourists, and we're very excited to have you here too today. So thanks, Jacky. We're over into your studio, so here's over to you.
Oh, thank you, Rob. Well, this is a really exciting opportunity. Thank you, Szczepan, for spearheading and ringmastering us all.
No worries.
You know, it's a bit like herding cats, is it? Getting all these artists together, or Jack Russell's even. Hey, Michael. But yeah, I mean, you've done a stupendous job, and I think, you know, because of the pandemic, everybody needs something to hope for. My sister works for the UN, and she went to Kabul, and she spoke to a mullah there some years ago, and she said, "What is the meaning of life?" And he said, "Something to love, something to do, and something to hope for." And I have always remembered that. My parents are full of philosophical things. My students get fed up of me philosophizing all over the place. Why do we turn that into a painting? It's really, you get out of bed in the morning, you think, is there something gone wrong with your head? You just get excited about this new piece of watercolor paper and this concept you've got. Why do we do it? I think I think there's many answers, obviously, but a lot of people are driven to expressing themselves through all sorts of reasons. My sister writes. Since I could hold a pencil, I just drew, and I sort of dabbled in oils and pastels and all sorts of things. And eventually, I was a soil scientist years ago, so I'm very, if you excuse the pun, rooted to the ground, and I think that's why one of the reasons we stayed in New Zealand 30 years ago and fell in love with it, because it's just real. Birds, there's landscape, and you feel like you're in your proper place in New Zealand. And I do miss the history and the culture I left behind in Europe, and I was very inspired. My mum inspired me as a child to go and look around graveyards and old churches and get into our cultural history, whereas here it's the natural history. And really, in my life in UK as a soil conservationist, I was always rubbing around in soils. I think I've got a bit of a crossover here. I'll just get a couple of things over here. I think my 3 calendars here, Lighthouses of New Zealand, I put those together 20 years ago and painted every lighthouse in New Zealand. And I think it was my transition from coming from Britain, and it's all about ancient buildings, to the natural landscape. And my husband, he got a job staying in New Zealand as an engineer with the lighthouses, and I painted all of these lighthouses. And so I wrote their history, and I visited. The only 2 lighthouses in the country I haven't been to is Cape Reinga and Pusiga Point. But all the others I've either got a boat to with my husband's job, helicopter. I haven't swam to any of them, but it was an amazing project. And then the Museum City and Sick put all my paintings on. I was made honorary member of the Lighthouse Society of New Zealand, which was very nice. But I think it's what drives you to have a passion in life, isn't it? That's I think we need something to do, someone to love, or something to love, and something to hope for. And in the pandemic, I love teaching, and I love all my students. I only have lovely students, and even if I won lotto, I would never give up teaching. So I think I get my inspiration from other people and the environment. We've just bought 3 hectares here, and we've got goats and chickens. So I've only recently started painting the goats. But anyway, when the pandemic started, the day we went into lockdown, I lost a lot of all my income. It just went, because around me, if you can have a look, there's a whole exhibition, and nobody came. So that was over the Easter weekend. So and then I had all these flights cancelled to workshops. I was supposed to be going to Wales and Australia and various places. So it was quite scary for me, but I feel guiltily. Guiltily, I actually enjoyed the lockdown because I think it really focused me. I'm only talking about me as an artist here. I've been absolutely worried to death about my family in UK and in various other places. And we've got family all around the world and in the Middle East, and I've been very, very worried about that. But that aside, for me as an artist, it was really quite sort of inspiring in the end. I got over my wobbly knees and feeling a bit tearful for the first week, which I confess I did feel. To really, I had to do two things. One, I had to work out where I wanted to go as a painter, because that's obviously my thing that I'm whatever else I've done in my life, I've always just painted. It's my way of expressing what I am, I suppose, and what I want to. I'm passionate about the environment. I admire Michael so much because you've got the imagination to put these important ideas down on paper, and like a writer, you're influencing people, Michael, and it is so drastically important. If we have one last breath in our body, we have to leave the world a better place, don't we? So, in my sort of way, I think that's what I would like to do. I like to inspire others if I can, but for me, I need the peace and solitude to come up with ideas to paint. And I just think we've got to all be in this boat together at the moment. So what you're doing, Szczepan, with getting all the artists together, it's not just good for us, but maybe other people will think, it's a way of getting out of yourself. Although it's quite an introverted thing, it's a way of getting it out, isn't it? And then it's for sharing. That's what it should be for, really. So anyway, I won't waffle on any longer, but I'll just show you what I have been doing a lot recently. Is I really want to develop my portrait. So portraits like this. I go painting in Australia. This is a neighbour of the art shack. Give the art shack a plug. And a chef where I stay. So there's a portrait. Wow. Gosh, it's hard to get it the right way around, isn't it? And,
lovely, Jacky.
Yes. From Tokelau. My husband's recently put a wind turbine up on Tokelau, so yeah, I do landscapes, just quick on site, Soames Island in the harbour, Aussie scene. I go to paint in Australia a great deal. So I've got my home gallery here. I'm not going to advertise at the moment. I haven't felt like it really with everything going on in the world. Another actual exhibition, but I'm hoping that people will come to my exhibition when they can over the hill from Wellington, and if they're travelling, because now in New Zealand, I think we've got one active case in New Zealand that we know about, so things are really freeing up here. As long as we don't get a leaky door, I think we'll be all right. So there's hope for the rest of the world, because it can be done, and we'll beat it together. But in the meantime, we've got to stay sane, haven't we, and just communicate and express ourselves. So anyway.
Jacky, thank you so much. It's really interesting to hear your thoughts about the isolation, and I think for a lot of us, it's brought about a reevaluation. It's actually simplified our lives dramatically, and I think that's where it's brought watercolour back into the fore for many of us. I constantly write about, to my friends that, we're very fortunate in having watercolour as a core part of our lives, and through these significant changes and the difficult environment which we've placed in, watercolour is that comfort, that home, that driving force, that passion, and you can see it in your work and your even your tone, Jacky, comes through as this passion of watercolours. Great, you know, and so stay online. We'll just thank you very much for opening up your studio there, and we might even get a chance to come back and have a look at a few more paintings if time allows, if Szczepan doesn't give us the cutout.
Absolutely.
So, now we're going to put your welly boots on, because we're going across the strait down to the South Island, down to see Svetlana down there down in the South Island. So thank you very much for opening up your door, Svetlana, and please take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. I live in Christchurch, and it's a garden city. So my inspiration, am I on?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, my inspiration is, of course, garden. You know, I love painting flowers and things that surround me. Yeah, I always paint. I've been lucky to be properly trained back in Ukraine as a child. But when I come to New Zealand, I didn't thought I will continue painting. I just never thought the rest of the world is different to Ukraine. After I finished my education, I thought I'll just do, you know, fashion design or something else. And it's in New Zealand where I become an artist. Yeah, so and I've been here for over close to 30 years now.
Same here.
That's my home. Yeah. And I painted here for 30 years. Sold my first painting here as well. Lockdown was, as my lovely daughter said, Mom, it's your dream come true. And it was. Because I was just, my time was all dedicated to what I want to do. There was no babysitting, which I usually help a lot with grandchildren, and I just paint them so loud. Yeah, so just give you an example, this week I've done 30 hours of babysitting, close to 30 hours. Being a woman painter, I think, is so much harder than, sorry guys, did you go ahead?
We won't even touch that, will we, Michael? I will just let that one through and say, of course.
That's how it's
Exactly.
babysitting. Yeah.
We muddle our way through life, I think.
Yeah. I just ask me questions if you,
Yeah.
you know,
Look,
help me.
I noticed that you a part of yours is a very academic training, and I think that's what your watercolour, and I can see these beautiful works behind you. I think that's what we see in your works. Is there a chance just to have a look at a few of your works there, Svetlana, which we'd like to see them if we can?
I'll show you something close up.
Oh yes.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I treat New Zealand making. I'm a king gardener, so I grow, you know, all my food, and sometimes I have this. You know,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I quite like being I have this cat.
Bill? Oh my goodness.
He's not actually our cat. He just comes and lives here. Refused to go home. And I'll just leave a few things on the wall. Show you.
That's fine. Oh yes.
Yeah. But the reflections here. With academic art training, I think it's a huge advantage. Because we spend years learning form and how to turn form, and at the time I think that, you know, education was free in Ukraine. I was extremely lucky. I have almost 10 years training behind me, and what I find in New Zealand, most art education is about concept, and the problem with that, no one actually, conceptual art is about what to paint, but the problem with that is actually no one teach you how to paint and how to understand form and how to make it three-dimensional on a flat piece of paper.
I think what part of the problem too in formal training at the moment is it doesn't open up the world to others, to your practice as well. You know, you are limited by your lack of formal training, and I think that's where I tend, you know, the aspect of drawing is so crucial, and understanding your medium. And watercolour is a very difficult medium, and to understand it allows you to open up your practice. And therefore, Svetlana, I noticed that you talk about your evolution of watercolour and evolution of art. Have you found that since, I think you lived in New Zealand for since 91, 92, something like that, has it evolved with
Oh, completely. I think I learned probably more coming to New Zealand than in 10 years of my academic training, because I just find so many inspiring artists that and the techniques I never actually thought would exist. So I'm looking back at my work and I just can't believe it. Like 30 years ago, what I was doing compared to what I'm doing now. Completely. And also we live in such a wonderful time where we have access to so many art materials, art tutorials, and other artists you admire. You can get online workshop, you know, stuff like that.
Yes, there's never been a time, has there, where there's so
I
many
know.
learning.
And you know, like there's a lot of paid. I took a lot of paid workshops, and also there's a lot of free stuff. I'm thinking actually to start a watercolor school, like how I've been taught, and like from scratch and create and like, because I have in the lockdown, what I find after especially lockdown is the demand become greater for art. I have so many inquiries about art lessons, art tuitions, and of course I love painting more than anything else. So I think
I'll just do a quick promo for our next session. We've got Bob Wade, who is coming on board, who actually pioneered this whole area for us in terms of, you know, the tuition around the world. So Bob, you know, had one of the first watercolour books out, who took tours. So yes, it is, this world of watercolour is opening up for us so much in tours and books and you know, YouTube and all that. So yes, I could see a school of yours being very popular, not only in New Zealand, South Island, but throughout New Zealand and globally.
Yeah, go global, Svetlana.
yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, thank you. You know, there's such a variety there in your watercolours in New Zealand that we've really enjoyed seeing today. No, it's just how is watercolour in New Zealand? Is it strong? Would you like to talk about, you know, how it's going?
I think it is strong. We have some amazing artists here.
Oh.
I think school, when it's come to school, I would like to see it a bit stronger, you know, to teach people who wants to learn. I think we're lacking of a good school in general.
Look, I'm also finding that with the so-called baby boomers moving through our populations, then, you know, there's more people wanting to learn watercolour, and since the pandemic has hit, I think that significantly increased our markets. I think there's
for teaching, I would say for teaching,
And Rob, I think a lot of tutors are now, well, myself included, learning how to Zoom classes and make videos, and I'm actually sort of learning all the techniques, and I didn't even know what an HDMI lead was until, you know, 2 weeks ago. So anyway, I'm getting a new subject up my sleeve, but needs must. So yeah.
Robert just had one question to everyone actually here, because the thing that actually fascinated me about partly putting this whole project together was that I started seeing that each region and each part of the world artists are using separate, specifically unique colours for those parts of the world. And I suppose that's what fascinates me with this group here, and New Zealand especially, which is where I was born. And to come back and see the artwork that you've been showing us. I mean, we're talking about colour. The richness of the greens and the richnesses of the yellows and the blues, that just trying to remember the colours that I saw when I was a child growing up there. They are absolutely unique. And now being here in Australia and watching and painting the colours here. And this is what really excites me about what I see with the work that you're producing, is that, it's so unique. The Europeans have different colours that they work with. And so have you had that sort of, like all of you, I suppose, open question, is there a particular colour that you use a lot of, that you know is unique to New Zealand? I mean, what's your experience when it comes to colour?
Leaf green.
Leaf green.
Well, I've got one thing to say.
Yeah.
Origin in New Zealand, raw sienna in Australia. There we go.
There you go.
I like these subtle colors, so I would like to pick up one color that and there's a bright one and subdue the others, but it's really hard to do that because all the colors are so bright.
Yeah.
I struggle with it. I deliberately subdued other colors to just
Yeah. Do you find that your palette though evolves? Has it evolved over time, so that when you were studying, for example, back in the Ukraine, and you painted with certain colours? Obviously, you were a lot, younger back then, but has that evolved and does it consistently or continuously change, or are you sort of set on a palette?
Surprisingly, lately my addition is actually some grey colors.
I like that.
The other way around, but I actually put more like Joseph Zbukovic, grey, warm grey, and Alvaro Castaneda, warm and cold grey. So I'm just experimenting with more greys.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a mutual paint here. Can you read what it says?
Tasman blue.
Yeah. we share.
There you go. I've got to learn these secrets. I've got to still learn a bit.
Tasman Blue is produced by an Australian company, but the name comes from when he was looking out the window on flying back from New Zealand. He looked out at the Tasman Sea, and that's how the name came about. So we share that there.
And our lakes, like if you paint the river on the lake, no one will believe you. It's actually true colors. I've just been doing plein air, traveling the west coast, and the colors just unbelievable. And if I painted them, people would think I exaggerated.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if the colours in New Zealand are so much clearer because of the lack of pollution too. Those mountain lakes and those beautiful forests and the crystal clear air, it just brings a clarity to colour, which is just unique. I fly fish, so I get up some of the New Zealand rivers and just amazed by how clear they are. There's a lovely shot behind Michael there.
Just a quick further comment. As we're speaking, we have all your work that's being displayed at the bottom of this presentation. Do you have any comments that you'd like to put to if you can remember what you sent in? Do you have any commentary on some of those images, perhaps? Because you can't see them, but they are circulating. So no.
Oh, I can't remember what I said.
Oh, there's a variety. I mean, that's where I saw all the rich colour, so that's why I asked that question, because they're so vibrant.
I have one, Szczepan.
Yeah.
This. It's a monochrome.
Ah, yes.
This is in the spirit of the Anzacs. Okay, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we had an artist called Horace Moore Jones, and he painted Simpson's donkey. And I was really inspired by that during the Great War Great War commemorations, and I thought I would love to paint an image that would commemorate his memory. And this is called In Praise of Common Valour, and it's inspired directly by my grandfather's experience at Gallipoli with the Anzacs, with the Australians, and it's about the untold stories, and it's about storytelling.
Yes,
That's what watercolor does so well.
Telling the untold stories of exactly, and I'm very proud of this painting, and it's now in the office of the Minister of Defence, who says it inspires him to do his best for the nation every day. So I'm really proud about that.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
It's bloke art. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Horace's work too is a powerful work, isn't it, with Simpsonese Donkey. I run a watercolour society, and I put that on for Anzac Day. And the number of comments I got back for that work alone, you know, it's just very powerful. Oh, and you know, Watercolour Society in New Zealand, what's the strength there?
Yeah, we've got a very good membership, a very strong caring committee, very dynamic. They put on an exhibition once a year, national exhibition, and both Michael and Svetlana have been recipients of Supreme Awards for it. And we have paintaways. Sue Wilde, former president, she puts on what we call paintaways. So one in the North Island, one in the South Island. We meet up once a year and do a big painting holiday. And there's all sorts of other things, outdoor, a lot of outdoor. I used to run an outdoor painting thing for them, and every Sunday go somewhere different. I mean, we do a newsletter, which is more of a magazine. So it's very strong. I think, you know, New Zealand's got a very long history of watercolour, and I think it's particular. Well, it goes back to the surveyor days. Some of the surveyors that came over from UK in the very early days were brilliant watercolourists. You know, you look at Hoyt and, you know, all these great names. They were just in their own right. And of course, and I mean, you know, yes, just amazing artists. But I think New Zealand's, I think watercolours in general. Hopefully, Aucklanders won't hate me for saying this, but I think it's very strong in Christchurch and Wellington areas. I mean, they're obviously there's, but in bigger numbers there. That's what we find, but it's very widespread. And I think with watercolours, it's accessible to everybody, but it's probably it's possibly the hardest medium to get any good at, because there's just so many balls that you know, to juggle. So you can have an idea and an inspiration, but trying to get it on the paper is really difficult. So I think, you know, what Svetlana was saying is really important, and you, Rob, that the brass tacks are good drawing, understanding form, what form and cast shadows do, and all about hue, tone and chroma. We've just got to know this like our times tables, haven't we? And then once you've done that, you can, you know, put your ideas down. So
I think there is actually rules in, you know, lots of.
And then you can break the rules.
There's no rules. You could just express yourself and forget about technique or knowledge. But I think there is rules, and it's ABC. You have to learn that before you start putting your sentences.
Yes.
Then you can break out. Can I just show you? I'm just indulging a little bit here. One of the first watercolour books I ever bought, and you probably don't know this bloke. It's a guy. And just this. He's a New Zealander. And
He's
just
a fantastic portrait artist.
Stunning book. So, you know, that it's lovely when, you know, New Zealand has such a tradition in watercolour.
Yes.
I mean, that's a strength, and people understand it there and want to know about it. And when people want to know about it, you know, you stand a much better chance of being able to market your work. Svetlana, before I let you go, whereabouts do you sell your work? Do you exhibit in Christchurch? How can people come and see your work?
Well, the best way is to come to me directly, and so I could sell it from my studio. I'm not really a big gallery person. I'm trying to get away from galleries because a lot of it a lot of galleries take 50% commission, and I mean they deserved it, of course.
Yeah.
But if I could get more money and the customer pay less, it's a win-win situation. Besides, I haven't actually found gallery that I actually fit in really well.
Yeah. No.
But there's a lot of opportunities in New Zealand to exhibit without galleries to be involved.
And I imagine in Christchurch at the moment, with the rebuilding of the arts centre, you know, those beautiful buildings which were tragically destroyed.
A studio space, I was thinking of doing it and do a solo exhibition there. There's also New Zealand, I believe, have about 50 something art awards and competitions. It's almost every week you can submit and participate. There's a lot of fundraising opportunities, schools, you know, doing all this art shows. At the moment, I have a Wellington art show online, which was cancelled, of course, and become online. So at the moment, I'm exhibiting there. But
Sorry, just a call. And can I just jump in here, because we are going to a global audience, and I'm going to give a plug for one of my world's most beautiful cities is Christchurch. Before the earthquake, it was absolutely most beautiful. And for those global audiences who haven't been to New Zealand, Christchurch, there's the most beautiful Avon River that floats through it. It has a somewhat English feel about it with the punts going along, but just a beautiful city. And we can see the rebuilding happening. So can I give a plug for New Zealand South Island tourism? I'm sorry you two in the north at the moment, but you know, if you haven't been to New Zealand South Island, do it. You're missing out. Go and see the watercolours down there. You'll be amazed by the landscape, the people. You know, New Zealanders are friendly, aren't they?
Oh,
We are.
South Island is the most beautiful too. You know. I live next to Mona Vale, so I get a lot of inspiration there. And the Hagley Park, walking distance from.
Wow.
Recently, I just been in the West Coast, and this is just amazing. So much nature, and just we had no Wi-Fi access for two weeks. That's how isolated the whole West Coast is, and beautiful rainforests
And for those in the North Island, look, I don't think you can go past. You know, for a city, Napier is stunning. The Art Deco city of Napier is just, if you're travelling to New Zealand, personally, I would thoroughly recommend going there. I'm sure there's some good watercolour galleries over there. And, you know, I just think there's so much, you guys have so much to offer the world here, you know, and I'm sure that, you know, your watercolours bounce off the tourist market there. So is that having an impact on watercolour in New Zealand at the moment without, you know, lack of tourism?
I guess we haven't found out yet. I was just wondering whether, since people aren't going to spend their money on going overseas and cruises and so on, it's their disposable income, if we're talking business now, that they may possibly have more disposable income as long as, you know, job security is there. People watch the world market, don't they, of course, and I think a gallery owner who'd been in the business for 60 years in Wellington told me that he's seen, you know, you guys, Svetlana and Michael, Gordon Cooksley from Waring Taylor Street Gallery, he said that he's seen a 5-year cycle in for watercolours in New Zealand, where it waxes and wanes on a 5-year cycle. So it'd be interesting to see what he thinks is going on now. But I think watercolours are like a steady ship. They're always there, but unfortunately galleries don't pick it up. Often galleries will only hold 2 or 3 watercolourists, and the rest will be oils and acrylics. And I think, I don't know, it's to do with the glass, the weight of the painting, a misnomer that the paintings fade, and it's incorrect, obviously. And you know, so okay. I think, you know, with the advent of prints, before the good G-clays came into being, prints faded and people thought they were watercolours, and it's given watercolours
Okay.
a
Okay.
rep.
Sorry about that. Okay, I think we're coming up to time. We're approaching that time when we're going to have to say goodbye to this group. But can I first say thank you very much to all of you, to Michael, to Svetlana, to Jacky, Rob. Thank you very much for hosting this. Again, thank you very much for welcoming us all into your studios, into your little corner of the world. It's been something really special to hear from each of you during these times. I'd also like to thank the whole global audience that's coming in and watching this. Hopefully, we're spotlighting something special on what is New Zealand, what's not New Zealand art, but also New Zealand watercolour art. So again, thank you all. Thanks once again to our host and our panel and our guest really. So thank you, and we'll go now.
Thank you.
To the next group. Thanks all.
Thank you, Szczepan.
Thank you.
See you all.
Thank you.
Good luck
Thanks,
continuing
Svetlana.
the conversation.
Thanks, Jacky.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye bye.